everyone. Welcome back to another episode of the Omnichannel Marketer. This is Kate Stevens, and today I'm excited to have Breanna Atkinson, founder and CEO of Kokada, on the show today. Hi, Breanna. How are you?
Good. I'm excited to be with you this morning.
So why don't we start with a little bit of your background? How did you come to found Kokada?
Yeah, long story short, about 5 years ago, my fiance and I were living in North Carolina. I'm a big experimenter in the kitchen. So back then, Kokada was one of my many kind of kitchen concoctions. I was playing volleyball. One of my teammates had a nut allergy, so I could no longer eat my favorite sweetened almond butters, which I still love today. So I made this coconut spread concoction as something that I could bring around my team that was refined sugar-free, allergen friendly. When COVID happened about 6 months in, we were just dying to get out of the house, really. So we started selling at a farmer's market. Kind of took on its own life from there. Our original intention was not to be where we are today, but obviously there was a need. People got really excited about it really early on. And 2 years later, here we are.
And so what was your background prior to becoming a founder of a CPG brand?
Nothing related to CPG, for sure. So I was a professional athlete for part of the year. I played for the Jamaican women's national volleyball team. So sports, competitiveness, that is very relevant in CPG and startup land. And then my other career back then was working in tech consulting. So building artificial intelligence solutions for big Fortune 500 companies. There's a lot of relevant skill sets, but obviously that is very different than consumer.
So tell me a little bit more about, Kokada and the brand.
Yeah, when we originally started, and again, we were not thinking we'd be a national brand back then, but the one thing that both my co-founder, who's also my fiance, and I are personally very passionate about that really came through with the brand is proving that at a really early stage that we can have a product that, number one, tastes good, because that's most important for us, is that it tastes good. It makes you feel good. It doesn't have added crap or anything like that. And it also does good. So from the very beginning, it was really important for us to build transparent supply chains to make sure that everybody's getting fairly paid, especially for a product like ours that's based in coconut. We have cacao and some flavors. These are ingredients that could have some potential issues in your supply chain or some things that you don't really want to be going on. So from very early stage, we built our supply chain transparently, and we also donated 2% of sales back to our source where we were sourcing our ingredients. So that is kind of the seed behind Kokada's brand is it tastes good. It'll always make you feel good, and it does good. And on top of that, it's just a product that's fun. So you'll see a lot of sweatsuits in pink. You'll see a lot of fun colors. Our goal is to make food fun for everybody.
I love that. And I actually remember meeting you for the first time at Expo West last year and seeing your pink suits. And there's definitely a very fun element to the brand that you're building. Tell me a little bit more about working at, co-founding the business with your fiance. How do you split up the work, and, how does that work out for you guys?
Yeah. Luckily, splitting the work is actually super easy for us. We are naturally oriented very different when it comes to how we think about things. He's much more nuts and bolts. I like to say he's kind of like the engineer mindset. He'll pick something apart and kill you with questions. So he manages a lot of operations, finance, that kind of stuff that requires amazing, intense focus on detail. I focus much more on marketing, product, of course, that's product development as well. We have future product lines that we're already working on now, line extensions, sales, that's kind of my realm. So dividing up the work is quite easy. Of course, there's places that we work together, specifically in fundraising, for example, or we're looking to partner with a major retailer. That's a decision that requires both of us. That's where, as a couple, it can sometimes get a bit hairy when we have very different points of view and, more importantly, very different ways of thinking about things. I think that's what makes us such an amazing team, is that we tend to think almost opposite and when we get to a conclusion. But that also does mean on a personal level, we have to work really hard to make sure that our work doesn't bleed into our personal. We have a great relationship in both realms, but it takes a lot of work and also a lot of ability to be vulnerable with each other. So it takes some humility for sure, but it works out really well for us.
I mean, I think the complementary skill sets make such a great team. I can speak to the same with my own co-founder, not in a personal relationship with him, but as well. But yeah, that complementary skill set is so important.
Yeah.
Okay. So, coming back to, Kokada and launching the brand. So it sounds like you started first at farmers markets. What after the farmers market was the first channel that you launched in?
Yeah, I'll start with our logic back then. At that early of a stage with no food and beverage or really consumer experience, we didn't know what we didn't know, but luckily we were aware of that. So we really wanted to start small and grow slow in the beginning and just focus on learning, as business leaders and as founders before worrying about top line or growing really fast or any of those things that now we think about. So our first kind of channel that we went into after those farmers markets, and it took us about 6 months of farmers markets just to feel out our customers and how to do business, was with local co-op stores. And I really recommend going this way for anybody that's not coming from food and beverage or consumer, is to launch small, local in co-op stores. So we ended up with about 15 or 20 of them after a couple months, and really just focused on how do we figure out velocity and movement and working with the stores and all that stuff that everybody talks about all the time. So we stopped with those local 15, 20 stores, and we stayed there for almost a year and really took our time in understanding what's going to work for our product. We continue to focus on the natural channel today, but now we're focused on the natural retail channel, expanding outside of local, of course, and now we're regional and soon to be national, but we're really hyper-focused on the natural channel first. And we also have a couple other channels as well. Now we're really starting to think about, a year from now, we want to be stronger in other channels as well, although we have a footprint in them. How can we be a true, I'll say the word since we're on the podcast, omni-channel brand that's strong in multiple channels all at once within the next 6 to 12 months?
So what is a co-op store exactly?
Yeah, so co-op stores are stores that they could be technically customer owned. So an example locally is Weaver Street Market. They're based in Durham and Raleigh, North Carolina. They were our first multiple store chain. When people shop at co-op stores, they tend to be locally owned. They might work with the big distributors, they might not, but they tend to be locally owned, very, very mission driven, very focused on bringing diversity to shelf and on being really involved locally and kind of incubating brands like us back then, who were really, really tiny and just trying to figure it out. But the big kind of differentiator between a co-op store versus something else is that a majority of their customers buy into the store on an annual basis. I forget how much Weaver Street Market's buy-in is. It's very small. They can range from $50 to $100. So the store is built around serving the customers, truly. And the customers really are the owners of the store. So it's a very local driven mindset for these stores.
And so what did you learn in, being in those local co-ops that has helped inform where the product and how your distribution is today?
A lot. I mean, of course, we learned the basics of just food and beverage in those stores. And what's great about partnering with those stores is their buyers are really focused on also delivering value to their brands. So when you're that early of a stage and you're launching in a store, there are some stores where you need to perform ASAP and you're going to get cut in a couple months if you're not. And there are some stores that are much more focused on incubating early stage brands and really taking an active role. And a lot of these co-ops are the latter. They're focused on incubating the brands. They'll be a little bit more patient. Of course, you have to put in the work, go in, you have to ask the questions and be proactive. But we found that these stores are really patient in terms of working with us. What we learned that really has made a difference for us is we're now in multiple regions is focusing on the customer. The co-op customer, especially co-ops in North Carolina, that is a very specific niche, a very specific type of customer. And we were in there demoing every single weekend, talking with people, writing down stats, figuring out who's buying, who's not, who's saying yes to the sample, who's not. Taking that amount of time to figure out our customer in that store helped us when we launched. We launched in Erewhon a while ago. Informed that launch, and we decided to fly out to LA and do those demos ourselves. Of course, it's great to move product ourselves and be out there, but more importantly, we were acutely aware because of these co-ops that, co-ops in North Carolina customers are going to be very, very different than Erewhon customers. Erewhon customers are going to be different from, a Sprouts or a Whole Foods, from a Wegmans. So I think what we learned by doing is it's worth investing in, number one, capturing like who our customer is in a given store and investing the time in getting to know those people and why they're buying the product.
So co-ops, and then sounds like you launched an Erewhon. Where is the brand today as it relates to distribution?
Yeah, so we're in the two major distributors now, just UNFI and KE. We're in a couple different regions. We're in about 200 like independent, like under 20 store chains, mostly on the East Coast, in the Northeast, the Southeast. We have a few in the Midwest, and then a little hub in LA with Mother's Market and Erewhon and Clark's, and we love those stores over there. We're about to launch with a national retailer in another month. It's a natural retailer, no names being dropped right now, but we're gearing up for that, and that's kind of our like big breakout event. We've really taken our time to get to that point, but right now we're in about 200 doors, soon to be 600 or 700.
Amazing. That's like going to be a giant jump in growth for you guys. I know that you were part of the Target Forward Founders program. Could you tell me a little bit more about that and, how that's, helped Kokada?
Yeah. I mean, I rave about that program to anybody who will listen. So we were so lucky to be a part of their Forward Founders program about a year into our business. Back then, I'm super transparent in just like how many times that we get rejected, because every entrepreneur does. We applied to heaven knows how many accelerators, grants, like 100, 200, like a ton of grants and accelerators. And we got so lucky that Target Forward Founders is one of the ones that worked out for us after 100 no's. It was worth 100 no's to get in there. Forward Founders is really focused on investing in the entrepreneur. Number one, they give you a grant, which is amazing because of course it is a time commitment. But number two, they take, I think it's 2 meetings a week or 3 meetings a week, and they go kind of function by function. How do you build this company, not just to get into Target? Because although that's a really great goal, that's not always right for every brand at that early of a stage. And we were one of those brands that went into Forward Founders like, we're going to get into Target in 6 months. And then after 6 months, we were like, we don't want to get into Target in 6 months. We're going to wait a little bit because we're not ready for that. So they took a session on distribution, a session on what deductions to expect from distributors, another session on velocity and like what's Target's expectation versus a very different channel like natural, right? Mass is very different than natural. So they're really hyper focused on, it's like an MBA for food founders. We got so much value out of it, and they're still very active with their alumni. So we continue to have like a great relationship with Target accelerators. That program is really what took us to the next level, not just as food founders, but also as like business leaders. And of course, the network is amazing. So I could rave forever about that program.
Tell me a little bit more about, why you thought you weren't ready for Target and, what you like saw about Kokada or other businesses at your stage and, why, because I could imagine it's like, oh yeah, Target, that's the dream account. Why it still could be in the future. Would love to know, yes, why.
Yeah. Target is definitely still a dream account in the future. I've been a Target shopper my whole life, so we will get there. I know it. But back then, when we went into Target accelerators, we were quite naive, and we just thought, you get in and we're going to move off shelf and you're going to like get all this revenue and it's going to be great. Of course, after that whole accelerator program, understanding the world of distributors, the world of mass market, it's very competitive. Most brands do need a significant amount of capital up front, of course, to get the inventory out there, but more importantly, to support that inventory with marketing programs. More unique challenge for our product is we're coconut spread. We always describe it like Nutella, but coconut based. It is really unique. And it's not necessarily like another almond butter, but a variation where people would know what it is. It takes a significant amount of effort to make sure that people run into the product either by demoing or couponing or merchandising, or there's tons of ways to do it. But to launch in a Target that early of a stage in a brand with a brand as unique as ours would be very challenging. We definitely now know that we want to build in the natural channel where we can focus on slowly, but in a more stable way, kind of building brand awareness, building loyal customers in different regions, and then launching in a Target when we have more of a national brand awareness. So that took like months to kind of get to that conclusion. And, no early stage founder wants to get to that conclusion that, a national launch day one is not right for me. Everybody wants it now, but I'm so thankful that Target was incredibly transparent and honest and kind of gave us all of the facts behind what it takes to succeed in a store like Target, because it's really, really hard and it looks easy from the outside, but it's really hard to succeed in mass market that early of a stage. So I think we know that it down the line is going to be right for us, but building in the natural channel and other channels too, like Amazon and all these other channels, is what we want to do first before we go into a target.
Yeah, so actually talk to me about the channels that you're in today. I think you have your own website, Amazon. How do you think about those different channels that you're in? And then, having a consistent brand relationship across those channels.
Yeah, this was another learning curve for us. If it's not obvious, early stage, we wanted everything now. So very early stage, we went into those 20 kind of co-ops. We took our time there. We wanted to be on Amazon really early. So we, as an early stage brand, kind of stuck the product on Amazon and let it ride, didn't really do much with it. We had our website, and that was kind of our 3 channels. What we learned through Amazon after a lot of trial and error for about 6 months is that for our product, Amazon is an amazing place for customer acquisition. It's a place where we want to invest ad dollars and make sure we have different variety kits available, but really investing in Amazon and considering it more as a marketing channel focused on customer acquisition rather than a true revenue play is the way to go for us. And once a customer runs into Kokada on Amazon, we have great reviews. They'll go into their grocery store, they'll see Kokada on shelf. And that's kind of where we hope to retain these customers when they're going on their grocery trips. So that conclusion took 6 to 12 months to get there. And we recently relaunched on Amazon and really built out our brand experience. Previously, it was bubble wrap the jar, send it to Amazon, let it be. Now it's a much more branded experience, really focused on wowing the customer from the get-go. And more importantly, pushing them to the channels that we know we can reach them later on. Education's a big thing for Kokada. How do you use the product is always a question that we get. So that question is one that we need to answer from the get-go, no matter what the channel is. And through Amazon, through digital, we can do that by sending them to our website, by collecting emails and educating them via email, social media. So the focus with Amazon and digital customers is to capture them, their emails and social media, so we can continue to educate, share recipes, and do all that good stuff. So those channels kind of work, in my opinion, in parallel to retail, more as a way to find customers.
So Amazon and website is a way for you to find customers, educate them on the brand, but ultimately the vast majority of your revenue and future revenue will be driven through retail. Is that,
exactly.
How you do it?
Exactly. We're definitely majority retail, and we're heavily focused on retail. That's where we see our brand and our product really succeeding. But Amazon and D2C, although are not as big of a piece, I think are just as important because we can find people faster. We can find customers faster that way.
Makes complete sense. And so sounds like different methods to kind of bridge the gap across those different channels. I heard collecting customer emails. How do you think about, bridging those gaps, but then also, that end-to-end brand experience?
Yeah, I'll start with, I like to talk about being an early stage founder because there was a lot to learn. What we were most shy of early on was asking people, can we have your email? Push you to our social media. It felt very early stage, we don't want to bother people. But now we realize, we've been here for a few years now, that if a customer will allow us to collect their email, if a customer does follow us on social media, those are the places where we can really provide value. We can provide entertainment in our kind of wild brand story as a little team of 3 that have no CPG experience. So entertainment's key. We can provide recipes that they can use for Kokada or for other things. We can provide ideas on how to use Kokada, other product recommendations. Now we know when a customer elects into either our email listserv or our social media that we're really providing a lot of value for that. So we've been focused on that from day one. In terms of brand experience, our focus is to be really consistent in 2 different things. Number one, our brand is fun, our brand is entertaining, and our brand is kind of aggressively transparent, specifically on platforms like TikTok is a good example, where we really show the ups and downs in the day-to-days. We're starting to do that more with Instagram, just figuring out how that's going to work. But even in our inserts now that we put in all of our packages and stuff, it's literally pictures of our faces, the 3 of us, and our story. It's not a cute picture either. It's kind of a weird, funny picture, but we know that it's important to be really transparent with our customers. on what it looks like to build this product and who the people are behind the product. And our hope is long term, that's how we build community, is just being transparent. We're just people, and we're building a community that's focused on better for you products that are still indulgent, but can also do good together. So that's our focus with our brand. And we try to make sure that that comes through in every single channel, including at trade shows. So it doesn't matter where we are. That's what we're always focused on.
Love that. So, we talked a little bit before we started recording about how you're really passionate about, female founders, fundraising. Talk to me a little bit more about, why you're passionate about, this topic.
Yeah. So we recently, now we're closing out our pre-seed round, and we were one of those lucky brands that started when the market was way up and then it went way down. We went through that whole thing. Everybody's aware that it's much harder as a female founder or a minority founder. And then when you combine those two, especially when you're a minority female founder, to raise capital, either through network, through friends and family, through angel investors, and through VC, right? There's tons of ways that you can do it. But the reality is that a very, very small percentage of fundraising goes towards female founders and minority-owned founders. Especially as the market went down, those numbers only got more disparate between those groups. So one thing that I've personally taken on this year is, it's never fun to talk about these things on LinkedIn. Like specifically, everybody wants to be positive, including me. I'm one of the most positive people you'll find out there. But the reality is you can't fix something if people aren't aware of it. And nothing speaks to the current state of something more than facts. So sharing those facts so more people can at least be aware of the problem is step one. And then step two is actually doing something about it. So what that means for me is more actively speaking with other founders who are particularly a bit earlier stage than we are in what it really looked like, how many no's we got, what materials we needed, how we went about finding the right people. For a lot of founders, whether you're female or minority or not, it's really hard to find that information, but it might be even harder for those groups. So I'm very passionate about that. I've been speaking more and more about it. Becoming less afraid of speaking about something that is a really hard topic to speak about. But if we all can get more comfortable talking about it, then we all can get more comfortable doing something about it.
Love that. I, can resonate with that as well. Not a minority founder, but, as a female founder, just how many no's you get. And I was talking to someone about this the other day, that it only takes one person to believe in you in a fundraise, but, you're going to get 100 no's, to your point, before that, that's just the expectation. So I love that you're, being tactical about, sharing what you learned and what it's really like, both publicly and with other founders, because I think that it's not just like that fundraising announcement. It's not just the good. There was really hairy, really challenging process to get there. And it can get dark. Get very dark.
That's what I was about to say. There's some moments. Dark days.
Yes. So anyway, I share that passion with you, and hopefully, we honestly would love to work together to, help other founders with that as well. Okay, moving into our lightning round. Your favorite omni-channel brand?
I love watching Midday Squares, and Fly by Jing is a tie, so I have to say two.
Those are both incredible brands. We had Jake on the podcast, and he's simply hilarious. The thing you wish you could change about our industry?
More transparency across the board. More transparency.
Yeah. Favorite podcast?
A lot of them, but I love HBR IdeaCast. I listen to that a couple times a week. It's all about business leadership and management.
Amazing. Favorite newsletter?
Charter. I read that one every single time it hits my inbox. It's high level news stories through data visualization. So there's tons of charts and cool visuals.
Cool. I don't know that one. Love it. I'm going to check it out. Favorite social media channel?
Personally, TikTok. I love TikTok. Professionally, for our brand, Instagram.
Favorite book?
I'm really liking the one I'm reading right now called Shoe Dog, Phil Knight. It's all about how he built Nike, but it's more about the really early days that were really ugly that people don't talk about. It obviously resonates.
Yes. And then favorite event you're planning on going to this year?
Expo West in a couple weeks. This is our first year with a booth, Expo West. So that's a huge accomplishment. And obviously there's a lot of work after that, but we're super excited to be there.
Oh, that will be so much fun. And then where can people connect with you?
Very responsive on LinkedIn. LinkedIn is a great place to connect with me. Also Instagram as well, either through our brand page, which is Eat Kokada, or through my personal page.
Amazing. Breanna, thank you so much. It was so great having you.
Thank you.
If you liked this podcast, follow me and the Bridge page on LinkedIn and Twitter for hot takes and tactical advice. If you really loved today's episode, we'd love a review on the podcasting platform of your choice, Apple Podcasts or Spotify. Thanks for listening.